What's up with these gloves? What is happening?
So you are going to be in the first episode. It's called Gloves Off.
Whose ass are you beating? Because I'm here for it. Just let me know.
Welcome to Gloves Off, and thank you for joining us for our first episode. We're starting this series in Texas because everything is bigger in Texas, including the fight right now for our rights and freedoms. If Texas elects a statewide Democrat for the first time in over 30 years, it could change everything, from the makeup of our Senate to the makeup of our courts to whether or not our democracy even has a fighting chance. Representing the 30th Congressional District of Texas, Jasmine Crockett is now also one of the leading candidates for U.S. Senate in Texas. Though she's only been serving Texans in Washington for 5 years, it took Jasmine far less time to make a name for herself as one of the fiercest and most fearless fighters against Trump in this administration. In our conversation, I want you to watch how Jasmine approaches the problems that get thrown her way and to listen really closely to how she talks about power, what it means to her, who it needs to represent, and how she intends to help fix this broken system we're all trapped in. It was a really meaningful, thoughtful, inspiring conversation I'm so excited to share with all of you. So watch and let me know your thoughts in the comments. We're only 1 year into this new Trump administration, and it's getting harder and harder to read the news and every day see new threats against our First Amendment freedoms. Now is the time for us to look towards the helpers, folks who are strategically fighting to protect and preserve our constitutional freedoms every single day. One of those groups is Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Their mission is to protect everyone's right to live as they are and believe as they choose, so long as they don't harm others. AU is fighting back against this new wave of Christian nationalist threats happening all across this country. They filed 11 lawsuits last year alone, many against the Trump administration directly, all to protect our individual freedom of and from religion. Whether you support public education, LGBTQ+ rights, reproductive rights and freedoms, or some combination of all of those, AU relies on the help of folks like you to be able to do this incredibly important work. If you're looking for an organization to support and learn from in these trying times, head to au.org and see how you can get involved in this incredibly important fight against Christian nationalism.
This show, I wanted to do it because I really wanted to have meaningful conversations about leadership and what leadership means right now and what is required of strong leaders in this really troubling and unprecedented moment in our country and politically and culturally. And so I couldn't really think of somebody who embodies gloves off leadership better than you. So I'm so excited to have you as one of the very first guests of the show. I want to talk about what leadership means to you and how you became you.
That's a really good question. I actually have always been the kid that was top of my class. So always was scoring off the charts on all of the standardized tests. But I was always a popular girl as well. I was the nerdy girl, but I was really more so known for being the popular girl. Everyone knew I was smart, but I was always very popular. I would say that I've always been a little feisty. There's always been a little bit of that that has existed. And I was never afraid to challenge authority. When I was a kid, I actually went to my mom about one of my grades before, and I was like, this grade is wrong. And she was like, are you sure? I was like, I'm positive. And my mom went to the school and she's like, listen, Jasmine says this is wrong. And she gave the teacher my analysis of why it was wrong. And the teacher was like, she's right. I messed up. I miscalculated. So the long story short, I have always been very confident in data and being able to back things up with data and challenging authority if necessary because I felt like it was the right thing to do. So, those are themes that still sit with me today. I think as I've gotten older, I've become more protective of other people. I think growing up as an only child, I never really found myself in a space where I needed to be anybody's protector because I didn't have like a little sister or brother or anything like that. And my cousins kind of took care of me. So my cousins were all older and they were the ones that were always like very protective of me. It wasn't until probably I experienced kind of the rash of racism that I experienced when I was in college that really kind of shifted me to an understanding that people are just attacked for like no reason, like no good reason, and made me want to protect other people that may feel very vulnerable in those moments when I became a direct target along with a number of my friends.
Even as a little girl, you were like really details oriented and into the data and identifying the problem and had like the courage of your convictions to go after it. I feel like something that I have seen you do is make a lot of power moves. And I know that sounds like a sort of generic thing because you're in politics and you're a politician. But I'm kind of talking more about sort of like the unconventional approach to taking on an issue or a race or a conversation. And I'm curious, do you have one kind of favorite power move that you've made that comes to mind that you're really especially proud of?
Um, anything that I'm super proud of is probably the things that no one has ever seen. I'm gonna be perfectly honest because I didn't go into politics so that people would learn my name whatsoever. So I would say some of my proudest moments was around making sure that we broke quorum the first time when I was in the Texas House as a freshman who was listening to someone that to this day I still consider to be a mentor, Trey Martinez Fisher. And really kind of pulling together this coalition. Gina Hinojosa, who's currently running for governor, was a part of that, and just kind of like really feeling like we had to do something bigger and more splashy and we had to meet the moment. It is interesting that all of this is coming full circle because I was a freshman in the state house at the time that we ended up going through redistricting, drawing these lines, and they were going and they were trying to bring about all these voter suppression bills. And I was like, we've got to ring the alarms. And much credit to the incomparable Nancy Pelosi, who in that moment decided that she would push forward with the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act as well as the Freedom to Vote Act because partially like we were ringing the alarms. And sadly enough, like when I think full circle moment, both of those bills got out of the House. Neither one of those bills made it through the Senate, right? And so now here it is, fast forward, we end up being the target of really a failure to act because now we've got this mid-decade redistricting that's taking place all around the country. And if that bill had just passed through the Senate, we would not be enduring this state by state, with Texas being the first state that they decided to go after. And so, I think that kind of really just lays out who I am in a nutshell. Like this girl that's like, you know what? If it's for justice, like I will do the things that haven't been done because I think that it's right. And because I'm trying to prevent what it is that I know will be on the other side if we don't act now. So it was a risky thing and it was a lot to try to coordinate. It had been almost 20 years since they had broken quorum before. And so it was just a big thing. None of that deterred me. And as only the 22nd Black woman to ever swear into the Texas House, I just thought, like, what type of legacy do you want to leave if you are going to enjoy the labor of those that came before you, but then you're going to be a coward when it comes to really taking this position and doing right by people?
I love that story. I'm so glad you told that story because I don't know if a lot of people know it, given your rise, especially in sticking it to Trump, but like what you were doing in the state house was incredible. And I mean, you answered this a little bit, but I want you to kind of go a little bit deeper on like What does courage mean to you in public service specifically, right? Public service to me is an act of courage on its own. And yet I feel like that has gone to the wayside with a lot of folks that get into this work, or they just lose sight of it over time. So what does that mean to you, and how do you preserve a sense of it?
For me, courage is doing the things that are uncomfortable, or being willing to do the things that are uncomfortable simply because you know that it is the morally righteous thing to do. As we look at this morally defunct government that we are dealing with, and I say the government because Trump could not accomplish a lot of the pain that is being inflicted on the people in this country without kind of a lack of courage coming from those that have sat by and acquiesced and truly failed to live up to the oath that they took to the Constitution. And so, it's funny because you mentioned Trump, and yes, there is this back and forth, and clearly I'm Trump's best friend, honey. He don't know nobody else's name sometimes, it seems like. But in all seriousness, I do think it's important because I think that a lot of people are getting a pass that they shouldn't. With him doing this stuff, people are like, can he do that? Wait a minute, he can't do that, can he? It's like all these things, and it's like, yes and no, right? Like, yes, he can, because people are lacking the courage in this moment to do right. The vast majority of Republicans are too afraid to do. They are too afraid. Like, they will tell you behind closed doors, like, I don't agree with this, but I can't go against him, right? And, I try to get people to be reminded of like who elected them, right? Like, did you get elected by him, by one person, or by the people that make up kind of the electorate of that 766,000 people? And I think that that's why, even with me, as my leadership and me, not necessarily always the tightest, I'll say it that way. But I think I've never really been that girl that's paid that much attention to that. I'm always like, let me listen to my constituents. Let me see what it is that they are talking about and what they're concerned about. And I think it is sad to call it courage to actually be a representative of the people that elected you. But in today's society, it's a courageous act to listen to your constituents. Do you remember when the Republicans refused to do their town halls? They refused to do the town halls because they didn't want to listen to their constituents, right? My job is to represent the 766,000 people they elected me to Texas 30. And, it is my goal that as we go through this campaign, I can express to the 30 million Texans that call Texas home that they deserve better, that they deserve a representative in the Senate that will listen to what it is that they need. And so it is important, when you're talking about a state as diverse as the state of Texas, it was a difficult decision to say that I would leave my House seat or not seek reelection to it, knowing that not only the people in my district, but people everywhere else were like, we can't afford to lose your voice. I'm like, okay, then let's make sure I'm not lost. Let's make sure the voice don't go away, right? Like, that was the goal. But like, I don't think that I could ever talk about courage if I did what was easy. And there is nothing easy about the idea of flipping a state like Texas, but it's also not impossible, right? And so, again, going back to me being a data-driven person from being a little kid to how I conduct myself in the House, we've reviewed the data. I am very confident that this can be done. Will it be easy? No. Is it impossible? No. Listen, Tara, the work that y'all are constantly bringing to light the level of corruption that is taking place, right? Like, you technically don't need me to do it, right? Like, you don't need a sitting member of Congress to actually be the ones. What you need is some accountability. Like, it's not just to illuminate these things. It's about seeking the accountability, and you can't have the accountability if you don't have the numbers in the other chamber, right? So we have a president who was twice impeached, but he was never convicted. So he ended up becoming president again. Again, going back to those bills, we have, Elon Musk, who spent a ridiculous amount of money to make him president. The Freedom to Vote Act would have prevented that, but we didn't have it. No matter what, I think people should understand that courage is more than a noun. It is an action verb when it comes to me. I truly believe that the path to preserving some semblance of our democracy is through flipping the Texas Senate seat. And it can and it will get done if we just stop with kind of what we can't do and focus on what we can do.
It's about power, right? And power is only as good as how you use it. And there's so many threads I want to pull on from what you were just saying, but one of them is like you are deeply respectful of your colleagues even when you disagree with them, which I think is important and nice. And yet also, there's like incredible frustration in the country and in the base of the Democratic Party, right? Recent polling had it at 29% of Americans see Democrats favorably. Like they're literally in the tank. And yet, these margins we're seeing in elections like in Tennessee and Virginia, New Jersey last year, we know that everything's on the map in a different way, but we also know it's in large part because of a referendum to Trump and that the angst towards the Democratic Party is real. And I feel like you are one of the strongest voices representing a different way of doing politics and approaching power. Like how you just dissected what should just be the only reason people run for office, which is to get things done for the American people. Like that is now somewhat of a novel concept. Like it's become so normalized to be weak and feckless and self-interested or hiding the ball or preserving rules that don't apply anymore. How do you not run against your colleagues in the party as a Democrat, but also really, really hold space and see what people are seeing and feeling about kind of what feels like impotence sometimes or weakness?
I lead the way that I feel like I can only lead, which is authentically me, right? And I remember when Marge and I had our little kerfuffle. Um, I remember some of the older members. It was an interesting dynamic. Those that are kind of what I would consider to be my auntie ages, kind of like in that range, they were like, "Oh, we don't know, like your district, like this may cause you a problem and this and that." And I'm like, "Listen, if my district wanted me to come to work and be disrespected and then sit there and smile about it and then somehow believe that I am going to fight literally sometimes for their lives, I I just don't know how you like I don't know how that works, right?" So I'm like, it's okay because I approach this job in a very fearless way. I'm like, if they don't want me, that's okay. That's what democracy is. Democracy is about people choosing who it is that they want to represent them. And if they have an issue with how I'm representing, like I'm good with that. Like what you see a lot of times when I'm in committee is that I miss the courtroom. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, all right, I did have a life before this. And, I chose to get into politics because I didn't feel like I was able to do enough just practicing law. I felt like I needed to then start writing the laws. Like that is why I got into politics, because fighting one case at a time versus being able to change the entire landscape of the system and literally giving people a fair shot all around is like what I was looking for. So like that's it. But I'm like, if the people don't want me, it is their right. It is their responsibility to like elect somebody else. But I'm not going to not be me because I'm operating out of fear that like this is how I have to act to keep the seat, because I'm not here because I'm phased by titles. I'm here because I'm phased by change and moving the needle. When you look at the fights that are being waged right now, this is a modern day civil rights movement that we must engage in. Those in the older generation, they remember a lot of these fights. Benny Thompson is just like another example of that. I mean, he's Jackson, Mississippi. So he's like deep South. I remember he had an invitation for me to speak at a school in his district. So I did the commencement speech at this HBCU, and they literally had to have like sheriff's deputies that were shutting down the highways to move me when I needed to be moved because of how much hate I get. We had the sheriff's department, we had the local city police on it. And then after I gave the speech, like we were very well protected, but after I gave the speech, they actually made like death threats and bomb threats to like the school. And it was just like, why? Right. But like Benny Thompson is another one of those that is just kind of a throwback. He's so senior that he has seen this stuff. But like when he was maybe engaging in it, he was like young. Some of those older members will call me and ask, "Are you good?" Because they look at me as having the energy and the ability to kind of meet the moment right now. And they don't ever try to stifle me. So I'm grateful, but yeah, it's interesting.
And I think that's part of the difference, right? And like you said it before, fear, right? When anyone's motivated by fear in any way, shape, or form, like it's not going to go well. You can see when people are operating out of fear. And I think that's why there's so much anger and frustration at the base, because the base understands the threat level that we're at right now. And they're seeing certain leaders that aren't embodying that threat level. And then they're seeing folks like you who are and don't have as much power or decision making capabilities because of the old rules. And no need to name names at all, but I'm curious, if you're elected to the Senate, what do you think about the change of the rules or leadership in that? Because it does make a difference, right? Just getting there is not enough. If like you're not in the leadership caucus, if you don't have a say, like the way that it currently runs, and we know how it runs, is not such that the best fighter or the most eloquent communicator is the one who's getting to call the shots. And I think a lot of people they're going to vote for Democrats no matter what. I think it's going to be a tsunami against MAGA this year. But I also wonder, like, how can people trust that if we do get the House and Senate back, that we're going to use it? Like, we're going to use that power.
I honestly think that's the number one question that Democrats have been asking as I've traveled the country post election and talking to people, and they're just like, yes, we don't want what the Republicans are doing, but like, what are y'all gonna do? Like, we give it to you. Is it just a matter of like, okay, now we're not getting punched in the head, but like, are y'all gonna do anything to like make sure we heal a little bit or something like that? And so I will say this about my candidacy, because I will tell you that there is nothing that is orthodox about my candidacy. My win in and of itself will actually unleash what I would consider to be a tsunami, a shift of a monumental level, because it means that the old heads who have consistently sat around saying, well, this is who's got to run in order to win, right? Like all of that
I
stuff,
was going to say, were they ever right, Jasmine?
they holding on to like I was that person in the 90s, not recognizing that we're kind of in, you know, 2026. Okay. Can you tell us like what have you done now? Right. Like, do you understand this moment? Do you understand how politics has changed? And listening to those same old people that don't know what they're talking about, right? Or people that are not really interested, I think it ends up being this whole conversation, right? I wouldn't have gotten this race unless there was polling that says that I could win. That's just the bottom freaking line, right? And so, like, if you have somebody that so many people are like, oh, it could never be, I think that it opens up what are people looking for in leadership, in elected office. I think it does open that conversation. I think that more doors become open to different types of candidates. And I think even leadership has to think about like, how do we adjust this idea of now I need to be somebody that I'm not because I got here. It's like I didn't get here being somebody I'm not. I got here being who I am. And, I think as I've had conversations, I was recently at our state championship game or games for our high school football teams. And I remember talking to an older Anglo couple, and the husband was like, I'm an old white man and I love you. And he's like, I have been waiting to vote for you. And he's like, I'm so happy that you decided to run. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so he was like, I watch you on YouTube. And he said, and I grew up as a Republican. He was like, today, I don't know who the Republicans are, but I cannot call myself a Democrat. So he's like, I'm an independent. He's like, and while we don't necessarily agree on everything, I love that when you are doing stuff, I never feel like somebody else is pulling your strings. I feel like even if I disagree with you, I respect you because I believe that you're doing what you think is really best. Sad to say for him, I'm kind of a product of Donald Trump because I probably would have just minded my business as so many people would have, because they're like, I'm not paying attention to politics and it's fine and nothing's breaking. It ain't great, but it's just kind of like in this stagnant space. And like with every day since he swore in the first time, our country has devolved. And with him swearing in for a second time. And I mean, I did not sleep trying to prevent his presidency. I really did. My fight was for the people. And I tried to tell people over and over as I was on the trail, take the vice president and Donald Trump out of this. Because no matter what happens, like, they're going to go on living their lives. This has to be about us and our futures.
But also, you know, politics has always been in part a personality contest. I think that's okay because that's human nature. But that's why, and I think the word authenticity is like so overused now, but it's overused because it matters, because people are looking for real. Like, to your point about like people won't agree with you on everything. Who's in a romantic relationship or marriage where you agree on everything with your partner, right? I think about that metaphor all the time. I'm like, that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for someone who's going to fight for them and the things that they care about and that they trust, whether they agree with them or not. And you can't trust someone if they're not being their true self. I think that's part of your like unbelievable electricity, is that like you know yourself really well. To zoom out, one of the conversations that I hate more than anything right now is actually the one that a woman can't be president of this country, because I fundamentally disagree with it. But I will say that it has always been harder for women doing everything and running for office because the criticism is different. It's way harsher on all sides, right? You have to put up with so much more. And I used to like defend, I've never said this publicly before, but like I used to defend in circles, even to my parents, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, honestly, about how can they be their true self? They're being told to be 5,500 different things from all the different people. And like, you're just contorting yourself and
Mhm.
trying to like maintain some sense of mental well-being,
Yeah.
like in the process, while you have the conviction of knowing you can make change and you could see it, right? You could sort of see it on the surface. And I adore and respect the two of them immensely. But I think that is something that is an edge you have, Congresswoman, that is like very evident that you are who you are and you are not going to apologize for it or contort yourself in any way. And that makes people trust you. And I think honestly, I hate to say it, Trump has a little bit of that.
No, you know what? It's right. Even though he's a con man, I want
Yes.
y'all to know.
People know that about him though. So they trust that he's a con man.
Correct. Well, I'll tell you that, again, because I give credit where credit is due. Um, I don't think that Trump is fit for the presidency. Let me say that part. But when you are running for office, there's two things that matter, and honestly, one matters more than the other. Your ability to actually get the seat. Okay, and when I say that he is a marketing, I'm not going to call him a genius, but he is definitely a marketing expert. He has been very expert in how to market. And when you're running for office, you are marketing self. He's filed for bankruptcy 6 times. And they're like, whatever. He's an amazing businessman. It's like, bro. But then you think about it, and it's like, he's had his name on buildings across the world for years. So you say he broke, and other people are like, So when he says fake news, they're like, yeah, they lying, because like I didn't seen this, right? Or when you say things like, he really don't really mess with black people like that, like he kind of racist, they're like, we're like, well, let's talk about these lawsuits, like where he was sued because like him and his daddy was racist. They're like, no, because I've seen him with rappers for years, way before he ever was running for office. So y'all just making up this stuff. Y'all talking about our guy, right? The Apprentice, like having that earned media kind of situation where people saw him as a boss, as a like all those things. And so I do try to tell Democrats, you can't beat up on yourself too much about Trump because he is an anomaly. Like JD Vance ain't got that. Like that's, it's not normal. Like he is not your typical candidate for office, Democrat or Republican. And you have to understand that he walked in with a brand. So he walked in with a brand. It was very difficult to defeat that brand because it had been embedded in people for a long time. One of the arguments that I've made, because people are like, we have sunk millions upon millions of dollars believing every time that Texas was going to go blue, and then we'd be like, and that was just a money pit. So like, what is different? And so, we've tried to make it clear that this is the first time that we've had a Democratic candidate who has started with such high name ID. We've had great candidates. I can't look back and be like anybody was trash, whether they made it to the nomination or not. We have had people that had great experience, great resumes, all that kind of stuff. But like, if don't nobody know you, like, then it's I mean, because first base is like winning, so you got to win. When I went to these state championship games, the three largest division of schools, those three schools all came from my district, my congressional district. They were playing. They're amazing. But nevertheless, somehow this year, like, so one of our superintendents made a phone call to my office as soon as one of my teams made it in and was like, hey, we want the congresswoman to do the coin toss. So my staff called, was like, hey, we want to do the coin toss. And they were like, that's going to be a problem. And my staff is like, why? And they're like, oh, because Senator Cornyn is doing the coin toss for all state football championship games. I was like, say what now? So then my staff, anyway, it was a whole thing.
Who was calling asking him?
That nobody. Okay. All right.
Nobody.
So literally like 200,000 people poured in. Like Texas, we do football big now, especially high school football. Okay. So this isn't my first time being at the games. Okay. I just want to put that out there. He does the coin toss. So all of my teams are playing on Saturday, the last day. The games started on Wednesday. So he's been there like, I've been at work because I got to be at work. So I'm in DC, right? I don't get out of DC until like that Friday. Fly in, and then Saturday I'm there the entire day. Like, we're doing my team's games. So they worked it out so that I would be on the field with the state senator that also represented all three of these schools. So we went on when they would have the officials kind of be announced for each of the games. And as soon as they would announce my name, the crowd would go wild. Now, mind you, like, yes, my teams made it, but also we had like teams from other parts of the state. It was basically a Dallas-Houston fight the entire day, to be honest. So a crowd would go wild, right? Like, we got Congresswoman Crockett, woo! Right? Okay. So the first game, they do that. And then Cornyn comes on to do the coin toss. They boo him, okay? So he gets booed. Second game, I go on, woo! Okay. He goes on, they're silent. Third game, I go on again, and then they're silent. But then by this point, I don't know what happened to him, but he dropped the coin. He dropped the coin.
Dropped the coin.
He dropped the coin, child. It was a whole thing. And I got to make sure we got that video. But nevertheless, so he drops the coin. So then the crowd went from being silent to laughing at him. So I was like, we about to have a problem because Cornyn is like feeling the heat because he's not used to a candidate that is not only known, but like in a very public way, like liked. Like that is scary because
like a rock star way in Texas.
Right. Because my name ID is where his name ID is by maybe just a couple of points. Like every poll that I've seen, our name ID is like right there together. The difference is Cornyn has been elected statewide for almost 30 years. I've never run statewide. And at this point in time, I had been in the race for maybe 2 weeks, right? So we've not spent on statewide media or anything like that. And so I was like, he about to text his boys that I'm going to be a problem. And so the very next day, that is when J.D. Vance decided he had something to say about me. It is also the same day that Senator Kennedy decided he had something to say about me. And then the following day, Tim Scott joined in on the fun. And so I'm like, bro, like this is, so, I say we just got to keep meeting people where they are. I say that we cannot take our eye off the prize, which is the people. The people have to win. This election should not be about the things that ultimately will happen, which is personalities and who I like better. It should be about who is it that has a track record of always standing up and fighting for us and can actually win, because you're going to need to have somebody. It's not going to be good enough to kind of just be like, oh, well, we've got a Democrat that's running and, they've never been attacked or whatever. Like, you can't, that ain't enough. Like, we're going to have those people that are coming out and naturally voting against Trump. But we're also going to need somebody that can bring out people that don't normally vote. And that's really the part that I think a lot of the pundits are like, oh, every Democrat says they're going to expand the electorate, but you got to get Republicans. And it's like, whatever.
Also, by the way, you can't win Texas if you don't bring people who don't vote out, because Texas is a non-voting state because of the laws and the cynicism. And like, this is where I'm like, I am so glad that both you and James are running. I'm a fan of his as well. But like in general, what it takes in Texas to get a Democrat elected statewide, which we don't even know because it really hasn't happened in our lifetime or since the beginning of it, is about getting people who do not believe in the system or that it works for them to be inspired, to have hope, to have somebody to be inspired by. And that's why it's like the two of you also being so dynamic and different. It's like, good, get as many people registered as possible just out of a sense of like hope, because that's going to shift the whole electorate. And if you know this, you shift Texas, you shift the whole country.
And we've been, so excited to hear the stories of people that are like, I don't vote, but like, I'm voting for you. And so, theoretically, like our theory seems like it's working. We'll know, and we will do a deep dive after the primary. And it is my hope that we can extrapolate and show how many non-voting people, not if a non-voter comes out in the primary, that's like next level. Like, cause like these are like, I mean, that is next level. So,
and we will see that. We will see that with your primary. There's no question.
We will see that. And so it is my hope that we can extrapolate those numbers of those non-voters that were so motivated that they came out in the primary and say, y'all ain't never seen this before. So when we start to talk about a general, this is why it's different. The moment is different for the Republicans because it's just really bad. This is the first time that I can think of that the Republicans are absolutely going to a runoff. So they're going to be fighting for a lot longer. So they're fighting until May. We can continue to work. We can continue to get around people. We can take advantage of the fact that they are beating up on one another and spending a lot of their money. So I'm like, this is really good for us. Like this is the best case scenario for the Democrats. Like it really is. And so I'm just excited.
I think you're doing a public service just by running, right? Like whatever happens in the end from a national level and perspective and energy and enthusiasm level, and especially in Texas. And I had 10 more questions I could ask you. You're going to have to come back on, but I'm so grateful for your courage. And thank you for showing young girls that they can be themselves and be a fighter and be able to like stay true to themselves, because I think it's one of the most magnificent things about you. So I wish you nothing but luck, and I'm really grateful that you were the first one on Gloves Off.
Yay! Take them off. Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Absolutely.
These conversations and the courage of these leaders are only as contagious as the audiences we reach. So if you felt inspired by this conversation and episode, please consider sharing it on your own social platforms and with your friends and networks. If you don't already, please follow COURIER Newsroom wherever you follow news and information, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you can be the first to know when our next conversation drops. So excited to be in this fight with all of you. And until next time, please take care of yourselves. We need you.